Watch this.
Reclaim Idaho has 9 days to get enough names to get an education initiative on the November ballot. They need tens of thousands of signatures to try to get millions more spent on Idaho schools. More than 5 million Ukrainians have escaped the war, with more and more making their way to the Treasure Valley to find temporary refuge. Local churches are doing what they can, but they need help from Idahoans. You know, you can't build a city without beer. I think that's how the saying goes. Well, one of Boise's early pioneers knew that, and he made a fortune out of it. We're pulling the tap on the legacy of John Lemp, born 184 years ago today. There's a bold plan that could be coming to your ballot come November. Big business paying more for the state's schools, at least if Reclaim Idaho has something to say about it. And they've been saying a lot about it lately. And they've also been rounding up signatures in hopes of getting this education initiative one step closer to being considered by voters. Their plan is to increase the corporate tax rate to raise funds for schools, which isn't always an easy thing to do in a conservative state like Idaho. Joe Paris checked in with Reclaim Idaho for a peek at their statewide door-to-door campaign, how it will work, and whether they can get the names needed by the end of this month.
From Dog Bark Park to the flea market under the freeway in Wallace, Idaho, volunteers for Reclaim Idaho have worked for months gathering signatures for the Quality Education Act's petition.
Well, we've collected nearly 88,000 signatures now.
Luke Mayville is co-founder of Reclaim Idaho, the same group that got Medicaid on the ballot a few years back. So what would Idahoans be voting on if their initiative qualifies for this November's ballot? It would be a question for Idahoans, yes or no. Do you want to change the individual tax rate so that any individual making more than $250,000 annually would have every dollar earned over that amount taxed at 10.92%? Right now, the top tax rate is 6%. The same 10.925% would also be created for married couples earning more than $500,000 annually, and the act would also increase the state's corporate tax from 6% up to 8%. Mayville says heading into the final days of their signature campaign, they feel good about their progress. As he just mentioned, the group has close to 90,000 signatures, way more than the 65,000 needed to qualify. But as Mayville explains, many signatures in campaigns like these end up getting tossed out.
Sometimes campaigns will end up having about half of their signatures invalid because the person who signed at the wrong address, or they weren't registered to vote, or their name wasn't legible.
So for Reclaim Idaho, the more signatures, the better. And as the campaign continues, Mayville says they've now met the other major requirement needed to qualify for the ballot.
Also cleared the major hurdle of collecting the signatures we need from 18 different legislative districts.
Volunteers have been working the pavement since last summer.
We get to a lot of doors, tons of doors, but a lot of people aren't home and a lot of people don't answer. When we do get people to answer their doors and have a conversation, almost all of them sign.
Sam Sandmeyer is a volunteer with Reclaim Idaho. She says their team has had a lot of great conversations with people from all sides of the political spectrum while knocking on doors across the state. That, of course, comes with people that aren't sure about their idea.
They're concerned about curriculum or things like that. We just say this initiative has nothing to do with curriculum or what is taught. It has to do with providing our kids with certified teachers who are trained and able to teach their kids.
Mayville and Sandmeyer say their conversations with Idahoans center on an elephant in the room, a statistic many Idahoans know.
Idaho is dead last out of 50 states in per student funding. Most Idaho voters find that humiliating, and they also understand that it's really hurting our kids.
According to a 2021 report by the National Education Association, Idaho ranks last in per student funding. So the goal for this group till the end of the month, quickly get as many signatures as possible, with the emphasis on quickly.
Luke and I were jogging, we're running from house to house yesterday.
We're people who believe that every child in Idaho deserves a quality education. We don't think we're anywhere close to that right now. And we want to give the voters of Idaho a chance to give our kids something closer to the quality education they deserve.
Going through every signature and processing that and verifying, that's a long process. That's going to be something that's going to take a couple months, as you mentioned. But they were very successful when it came to their Medicaid campaign a couple of years ago. How does this one compare?
Well, they were telling me earlier, Brian, that in terms of the door-to-door campaign, this is very similar to their Medicaid campaign that many people might have seen a few years ago. The interesting conversations they're having with Idahoans about education is similar to what they had with Medicaid in the sense, Brian, that they're finding that Idahoans that are on different sides of the spectrum, they agree on something. They agree that they say, we want to give more money to education. Of course, as we mentioned in the story, there's a lot of conversations these days about curriculum, critical race theory, funding education. This only has to do with sending more money to public education and at the expense of raising tax rates for Idaho's highest earners as well as the corporate tax rate. So that's really what Idahoans will have to decide if they want people making more than $250,000 per year to pay a higher tax for every dollar above $250,000 that they make, also raising the income, or excuse me, the corporate tax. So if this qualifies for the ballot, and they'll find out probably in July, this would be on the November ballot, and it would just need a simple majority, 50+1 from Idaho voters. But just to be very clear, just if this petition is approved doesn't mean anything other than it'll go on the ballot for all Idahoans to vote on. It would be interesting to see how that vote would shake out. But again, the goal is to be on the November 2022 ballot, the same ballot that the governor's race, for example, will be on.
The general election. All right, thank you very much, Joe. Well, 2 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, an estimated 3,000 Ukrainians have died, an estimate that is likely much higher. The violence is forcing millions of Ukrainians to leave their homes and everything that they've ever known behind. Many are starting new lives in parts of Europe and across the United States, with the number of Ukrainian refugees coming to Boise growing. But just because they are no longer facing the explosive violence of war when they get here, doesn't mean their challenges stop completely. So what hurdles are Ukrainian refugees facing here in Boise, and what can we do to help? Here's Katya Stepovic.
He's currently living with his brother. Their whole family.
This is Irina Rozanovich, who moved to the States from Ukraine at just 8 years old.
И эти события для нас были, немножко такими непонятными.
We could not understand the situation and why it was happening.
1 week ago, her uncle Vitaly Prudnikov and his 6 kids joined her in calling Boise home.
Здесь приходится...
Here's the choice that you have to make. Either you choose to take care of your house and your property and material things, or your life.
Vitaly, his wife and kids left Mariupol, and they try not to look back.
Город оказался в окружении.
The city of Mariupol was encircled.
И осада, она была очень жестокой.
And the siege of the city was just horrible.
Потому что был разбит водовод, который питал Мариуполь водой.
The water source was destroyed. The water source for the city was destroyed.
Потом были разбиты все подстанции, которые питали город электричеством.
All the electrical stations were also destroyed.
И, естественно, нет ни отопления, ни тепла, ни связи.
There was no heat, no communication, no electricity.
When asked what it was like for Vitaly and his family to pick up and leave everything behind,
Не хочется об этом всем и вспоминать.
He's saying he doesn't even want to remember that, this whole experience.
Трудно переживать.
It's very hard to live through that.
Когда вокруг тебя рвутся снаряды, когда
everything's exploding around you.
Когда гибнут люди, рушатся дома.
When people are dying and houses and buildings are getting destroyed.
Irina says right now there's anywhere from 20 to 30 Ukrainian families who have fled to Boise, and they came here under humanitarian parole, which means they're not eligible for things like green cards or refugee resettlement programs.
So there's no pathway, for them to help just yet.
I'm a member of the cathedral choir.
But churches around the valley are feeling called to help.
One choir rehearsal, I stood up and said, thoughts and prayers are not enough.
In an effort to raise money and support, Nick Anderson, a member of the Cathedral Choir, has planned a refugee concert that will fill this room with sounds and tones from all different backgrounds, including the Slavic community.
These people need help. We are in very fortunate circumstances. We sit here in a lovely park and we don't have to worry about bombs and shrapnel. When I was growing up, I saw bomb sites in major cities in England 25 years after the bombing of the Second World War. And you would think we would get past genocide, but this is genocide by any other name.
Anderson says the concert will be videotaped and sent to Ukrainian families with internet access, letting them know the Treasure Valley is supporting them and welcoming them with open arms.
There's going to be a whole group of people who, for no fault of their own, have been bombed out of their homes. And that just speaks to me in terms of you want to help. Music is one way we can help.
Как бы то ни было, жизнь продолжается.
Life continues no matter what.
И всегда человек надеется на лучшее.
And everybody hopes for the best.
All right, Katya, with these refugee resettlement programs, why don't Ukrainians get the same treatment that other refugees get when they come to Idaho?
Well, unfortunately, humanitarian parole is a separate category from a refugee status. So right now, Ukrainians can, depending on their situation, apply for asylum and go through that process. But the Idaho Refugee Center tells me the U.S. expects the war to come to an end at some point, like we all hope it will. So things are very temporary right now, and they're given temporary immigration status. But that doesn't give them much aid or resources, which is why donations are really needed, not only for Ukrainians in their country, but also those who have come to the States and right here in Boise. Links to help them can be found on our website. Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Katya.
I need to show you that we have the thunderstorms that are moving through for this evening. If the rain doesn't drive you inside, the lightning should, so get inside. Okay, this could be dangerous as the storm moves through about the next half hour, 45 minutes, moving through the Boise area. Don't expect much after that, but there are storms in the area. So for this weekend, windy for tomorrow, breezy on Saturday, nice Sunday and Monday, Tuesday. Another storm's possible getting into next Tuesday and Wednesday. That could be back to some more showers in the mountains.
The city of Boise has been around as an official city nearly 160 years. In that time, the city has been served by 45 different mayors, some serving longer than others. One of Boise's first mayors was also one of the town's pioneers, and he served one of the shortest terms. He served just 1 year, but he served a lot more than that when it comes to libations. Born in Germany, Lemp came to America at the age of 14. John Lemp, like a lot of others, worked his way west, hoping to make it rich in precious metals. But Lemp would find his fortune in another popular provision of pioneer days that also just so happens to be golden: beer. John Lemp would go on to become known as Boise's beer baron, and he was born on this day in 1838. The story goes, John Lemp first stepped foot in Boise the day after the city was first surveyed, July 8th, 1863. He tried to make it in the mountains as a miner, but that didn't pan out. So in 1864, with what little gold dust he could muster, Lemp built a brewery in Boise. on the southwest side of 6th and Main Streets. Yeah, that same crowd-pleasing corner, now known as the Old Statesman Building. Lemp claimed his brew was honest beer, made only with Idaho-grown hops and barley. Lemp's Boise Brewery also spawned several saloons around town, one of which would burn down in August of 1866. Even his brewery was touched by fire. Not that it slowed Lemp down. He was able to parlay his business prowess to become mayor of Boise for a year, a city councilman for 20, and vice president of Idaho's first national bank. The Lemp legacy still lingers, with more than a mile-long street in Boise's North End bearing his name. You know, that's not all. The Lemp family later donated about a dozen North End acres to the city that would become Camel's Back Park. Well, John married his wife, Catherine, who was also from Germany in 1865, and they had 13 kids. His brewery at one time was the largest in the Idaho Territory, turning out about 1,200 barrels a year. Lemp would also own a dry goods store. He grew his own grain. He'd invest heavily in ranch property and livestock to become one of Idaho's first millionaires. He's also very generous with that money, believed to have paid for the burials of more than 20 of Boise's pioneers. And when John Lemp died in 1912 at the age of 74, his estate was estimated to be worth $800,000, or nearly $25 million in today's dollars. You know, parents hear this phrase all the time, usually probably in the middle of some crazy public temper tantrum your kid is throwing. They say, enjoy this time, it goes by so fast. And it's true, they do grow up so quickly. And some even start out that way. One minute they're making their way into the world on the Boise Connector, on the way to the hospital. Well, the next they're turning 20 years old. Tomorrow is going to mark 20 years since John Miller caught up with Colleen and Mark Richards. And it was just a few hours after their bundle of joy decided he couldn't wait to meet his mom and dad any longer. Here's today's 208 Redial.
Mark and Colleen Richards' kids all had one thing in common at birth.
They were all 2 weeks early.
Just the other morning, 3 weeks before his due date, their fourth child threw Colleen a curveball.
All of a sudden she says, "My water broke." And that was at 2:40. So she got out, ran into the restroom. I got dressed really fast. We headed downstairs and out to the car really fast. I got on Chinden and open road, you know, speeding down Chinden as fast as I could safely go. And we weren't halfway down Chinden, and she said, "Call 911." And I said, "Are you sure?" And she says, "Yeah." So I called 911. I got him on the line.
I'm on the connector now.
You're on the connector?
Can you call St. Luke's and have them be at the door ready?
Okay. Yep, we will have somebody waiting on you.
I think she said she could feel the head at that point. And I looked over and the head was there.
Oh my gosh. Never mind. It's here. Okay, I'm right at the Front Street exit on the freeway.
Okay.
Need someone here as fast as you can get them, okay?
Okay, Front Street exit.
Yep.
Okay, we've got them on the way.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, bye.
I pulled over. I was off the phone by then, swung it in park, swung the door open. I ran around the car and opened her door, and there she is with the baby's head there. And you know, it obviously didn't look like a comfortable situation, so I got her feet up comfortable. She pushed really hard, and he came right out.
And though Mark had given dispatchers the wrong location, paramedics found them just minutes later and got mother and child safely to the hospital, where they're doing fine.
I mean, there's not a more remarkable woman in the world. She was just absolutely incredible.
With the baby's grand entrance at an exit, it bears noting there's only one name that suits a child whose parents had to pull the car over and deliver him on the side of the road. So, welcome to the world, Parker. John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
Parker, perfect. But guess what? Baby Parker isn't a baby anymore. He just celebrated his 20th birthday. So we got in touch with Mark and Colleen. And you know what? Like you just heard, Parker wasn't their only child to be born early. All four of their kids were a couple of weeks early. And their second daughter made her way into the world in the emergency room. She couldn't even wait to get past the emergency room. But it is Parker's birth that people still remember to this day.
It's just like nobody forgets it either, because I just had friends joking about it last week about him being born. So it's like all of our friends there in Idaho just remember it and continue to talk about it. And it's been kind of cute to see him over the years. He knows he's known as the connector baby, and he often shares it with people. He was driving really fast. I think he was going about 100 miles per hour. And so I was just hoping that he would not get in a car accident. And then it was funny because I kept thinking about the things that needed to be done. And he kept telling me to stop it. Like we had a paper route and I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to call this. And he's like, you're having a baby, quit worrying about it.
I was trying to be for her, right? Yeah, no, it was pretty scary. People ask, you know, how did you go through that? And I'm just like, you just do what you have to do. And I just remember when he was born, he let out a cry. And that to me was very comforting because I didn't know what to do. And having him cry out, you know, told me he was okay.
One thing that was kind of funny over the years is people would always say, oh, you were so lucky to have a baby that fast. I don't recommend it. I think being at the hospital with a doctor, slow and steady, is the best way to go. We had the minivan actually for a long time. So when he started dating, he would turn to his dates and go, by the way, you're sitting where I was born. And they would just kind of look at him like, what? So anyway, and we did keep that chair for a long time. Our van ended up catching on fire, the engine,
and
one time.
I pulled the chair out and mounted it on board so he could use it as a gaming chair. So it was kind of fun.
I was like, we have to save that chair.
We do still have it. It's downstairs.
They do still have it. There it is, downstairs. He put the planks of wood on it. It's a gaming chair. Amazing. Wow. Okay, well, there you go. Well, you know, Parker was their fourth and last kid, and after that experience, obviously, who can blame them to not want to try that again? They still have the chair. The family moved to Utah back in 2013 when Parker was in about the 5th grade. Today, Parker is older than that, as we said, turned 20. He's 6'3", so he has to push that seat all the way back now when he gets in the front seat. And at the moment, he's serving an LDS mission in Chile. But coincidentally, because of COVID and closed borders, he was temporarily assigned to serve, of all places, Boise. All right, final moments of the show. Let's get to your comments. You sent a lot of people talking about Reclaim Idaho's bid to get an education initiative on the ballot to bring more millions to education because, after all, we're the lowest funded education state in the union. More money for education doesn't necessarily equate to better education, says Mike, a sentiment shared. Well, by Karen, regarding quality education, don't you first need to define what you mean by quality? It seems all we do is tear down what educators are trying to accomplish. So before we vote on higher taxes, we need to know what students are going to get for those tax dollars. Well, Karen, I guess they would like to start with better pay for the teachers to keep the good ones in place. Why don't we take care of our people first in regards to refugees? Just like Jesus taught us, isn't it?